Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that little activity you just did. I hope it provided you with some information on how you spend your days, how you spend your week, and what takes up our time. A lot of times we don't even realize what we're spending so much time doing. And so I want to share a little bit about another family and the different people in the family and how they each decided to spend their time. And at the same time, I want to talk to you about friendship, and having the type of friends that can point out to us areas in our life that we need to change, that maybe need a little bit of attention. And they're brave enough and strong enough to be honest with us, even to the point sometimes of risking the friendship in their honesty. So I remember some advice I received some years ago. I was going through a difficult time in my life, and it seemed that all these people that I thought were friends, and again, I thought were friends, they were falling left and right. And I remembered someone telling me, find a friend. Find a good friend. And honestly, those words led me to a lot of prayer, because up to that point, I thought I had a lot of good friends. But after praying, I realized that a friend is someone who I just described to you. A friend is someone who's willing to be honest, is willing to risk you being maybe upset or mad or not even talking to them for a while, but they love you that much that they'll have that level of honesty with you. So in this little story that I'm going to share with you, we're going to see that type of friend who has that type of honesty. So this is out of the Gospel of Luke. It says, while Jesus and his followers were traveling, they came into a town where a woman named Martha lived with her sister Mary and brother Lazarus. They were friends of Jesus, and whenever he passed through there, Martha would welcome him into their home. And this particular time, Jesus was passing through their town, through Bethany, and Martha was making the preparations to welcome him. And don't follow along in the Gospel of Luke, because I'm not reading it word for word. But Martha was busy with all the work that had to be done. She went in and started left and right, moving and doing, because you need to remember that wherever Jesus went, he never went alone. Either he had a huge crowd with him, but for sure he had the disciples, his close friends. So that meant that wherever he stayed, it wasn't just him, he had others with him. So Martha was busy doing all these things and getting ready for this visit. But before we do that, before we find out that, I want you to think about your own life and the type of schedule that you just said that you have on a weekly basis. What would it be like if you suddenly got an unexpected visitor? What would your parents say? Would they make you clean your room? Would they maybe make you help in cleaning the rest of the house? Probably so, depending on who the visitor is. And then there's all the worries of how are we going to greet our guest? How are we going to receive them? So this was Martha. When Jesus came into their home and she received him, she may have been all smiles, but I'm sure in her mind she's thinking about all these things that she needs to do in order to be ready for Jesus. So I'm sure Jesus hadn't phoned in ahead of time because there weren't any phones. So it's not like they were expecting him. He just dropped in. And so here is Martha now concerned about all these things that she has to do. She's worrying about perhaps the food that she has to cook. Does she have enough food? How long will it take to prepare all this food? Is the table ready and set? Does she have water and clean towels to offer all the guests? Because remember, for the Jewish people who walked everywhere, it was very important. Cleanliness was very important, and it was the sign of a good host or hostess to offer their guests water and towels to wash their feet. So Martha is busy. She's running here and there, as probably as our grandmothers, your grandmothers would say, like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to get everything ready. And what do you suppose her sister Mary is doing? While Martha is doing all this other stuff, cooking and setting the table and sweeping the floors and gathering water, Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet. She's just listening to him as he sits there and talks. Perhaps he's sharing with him about the travels. But she's there. She's not concerned about any of the things that Martha is. She's listening to Jesus tell about his travels and listening to his friends as well. And meanwhile, Martha keeps going, and every time that she has to do something else, and more time passes by, and Mary is still sitting there, she is getting upset. She is getting upset, and she is anxious and worried. And what kind of hostess are all these people going to think that she is? So her anxiety is mounting during all this time. And there is Mary, peaceful as can be, just sitting there and listening to Jesus. So finally, Martha's anxiety and worry and exasperation and everything reaches the point that she can't take it anymore. And she comes to Jesus. And she says, Jesus, don't you even care that my sister is not helping me? And she says, tell her to help me. Now let's think about what just happened. Martha was happy to welcome Jesus. She wanted to receive him and his friends into her home. And she decided what was important. She decided that she had to hurry and prepare that meal and clean that house, bring in the water. Nobody was asking any of these things, but Martha decided that's what mattered most. Meanwhile, Mary decided that the most important thing was to sit at Jesus' feet and listen to him. So in her worry and in her anxiety, and in the things that she thought were important, Martha even dares to tell Jesus what to do. How does Jesus respond? Remember what I told you earlier about having that friend, that true friend, that risks being honest with you. So how does Jesus respond to Martha? He said, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. If you were Martha, how would those words make you feel? That all this other activity that you thought were so important, your very good and dear friend has just told you that you're worried and anxious, but this other part, it's the better one. I can't imagine what Martha must have felt at that moment. Maybe she felt embarrassed that Jesus had told her this in front of everyone. Maybe she was mad at Mary because now Mary had chosen the better part. There's just so many things that we don't know. But she was human, just like us. So think about how we would respond if somebody said, you know, all these things that you have on your weekly schedule, all these things that occupy your time, they're not the better thing. There's something better. So Jesus understood why Mary was upset. He understood why she was working so hard to make everything right. But Jesus wanted Martha to see that there was something more important than what she was doing. There was someone more important in her presence. And he didn't want her to miss out on that important thing. You see, Jesus is the type of friend who is going to tell us the honest truth about what we're doing. Sometimes it may be painful to hear. I know in my own life, I've been corrected many times. I often say that I have traveled down paths that I would not have chosen for myself because I thought I knew better. But God said, this is the better part. So I would not have chosen those paths. But I'm forever grateful to God that those are the paths that He chose for me. And I am grateful that I obeyed. So when we think about it, like Martha, if you look at your schedule, the activity that you worked on, we can become busy with so many other things that we miss out on the most important thing, spending time with Jesus. We still need to do other things. We can't forever sit and just listen because that's not how God calls us to be. But He does calls us to be that from time to time. We still need to tend to the chores that we need to do. We still need to tend to our schooling because you're going to school. We need to tend to the things that our parents or our family needs from us. We need to pay attention to those things. But at no time should those things come before Jesus. And that's why He was trying to tell Martha on that day that yes, things are important. Cooking meals, receiving guests, being a good hostess, a good host, welcoming people into our home, spending time with them. All those things are important. But we need to take time to listen to Jesus so that we can spend special time in conversation with Him. And that conversation is prayer. And your prayer doesn't have to be just the written prayers. It can be simply talking to Him about your day, or what hurt you, or what frustrated you, or what made you mad, what made you anxious. He's an excellent listener. And then we need to trust. We need to trust that He will guide us in the right way. He may tell us things that sound a little rough for us to hear, like He did with Martha. But in the end, we need to realize that He's telling us these things because He loves us. We need to trust in His love and know that because He loves us, He wants just what is good for us. So yes, in our lives, we should always make time for the married part. We should always make time to simply sit and listen and speak to God. That's very important. That's nourishment for our spiritual lives. And it allows us to grow in our relationship with Jesus. And as we do, we begin to discover maybe in easier ways what He's calling us to do, how He's calling us to be. Not that there was anything wrong with what Martha was doing, because we all need to be Martha in our lives too. We all need to take care of things. We just need to learn the balance. So in my life, Jesus has always been a driving force. He's always been that type of friend that tells me what I need to hear, even when it's rough, even when it hurts to hear it. And it's hard. And again, it may cause pain to obey what He asks. But at the end, we trust that He asks because He loves us. So in your life, make Jesus your friend. And then find friends around you who also encourage that type of relationship, who are honest with you, who will walk with you in important ways, and be there and be honest enough to tell you when you are doing something wrong. So I hope you enjoyed this story of Martha and Mary. I didn't mention their brother Lazarus much. And if you go read it in the Gospel of Luke, it's not going to be exactly as I told it to you. But that's the wonderful thing about Scripture, is that we take it, we learn it, and we make it our own story. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your retreat. I know it's been made with lots of love.